My younger sister, Lydia Miller, and I are unexpectedly reborn into a beastman tribe, where the beast god gives us a choice of identities. The first option is to become a beast woman, with tremendous strength and a tall, imposing physique. The second option is to become a saintess, with the ability to reproduce across species and an alluring, graceful figure. In our previous life, Lydia became a beast woman to survive, while I became the frail saintess. She ended up being scorned by the tribe's beastmen for not being feminine enough. Meanwhile, my delicate appearance captured the hearts of the three strongest and most handsome beastmen in the tribe. I became the woman they treasured above all others. Eventually, they rose to rule the primeval forest, and I shared in their glory as their saintess. Driven mad with jealousy, Lydia pushed me into a poison swamp when no one was looking. With my last bit of strength, I plunged a poisonous thorn into her body, and we died together. When I open my eyes again, we're back at the moment when the beast god asks us to make our choice.
Ella, this time I'll be the saintess. Is that I'm louse and I feel sorry for you. I'll let you have those 3 defective, impotent menaces.
This time, Lydia immediately chooses to become the saintess. I bite back the surge of joy welling up inside me. What's so great about being nothing more than a breeding tool, anyway? In a primitive world, strength is everything. I opened my eyes. The searing pain of the poison still lingered.
You have both perished in the mortal world, yet your souls have been sent here by the main god.
2 identities now lie before you. The first is to become a powerful beast woman. The second is to become a saintess. Have you decided which of you will become the saintess and which will become the beast woman?
The beast god's voice rang out with immense authority. We looked down at our feet. Below us stretched a vast, primeval forest. The continent the beastmen called home. When my sister Lydia Miller and I first arrived on this continent in our previous life, fear filled our eyes. The distant howls of wild beasts made the law of the Gangle unmistakably clear. So Lydia chose the beast woman identity without hesitation. A beast woman has her own unique charm. After making her choice, she shot me a smug look, already imagining how beautiful she'd become. The beast god told us that on the beastman continent, females were extremely rare. A single female could even have multiple mates. To Lydia, it sounded like a dream come true.
Ella, before you traveled through time, you've lived in the Miller family in my place for so many years, so you probably can't handle hardship. Let these powerful beastmen look after you. After all, this is a place where the strong devour the weak.
I ignored her mockery and walked straight toward the 3 beastmen. Lydia was right. Strength ruled supreme here. Later, after we formed our mating bonds, those 3 fierce beastmen transformed into handsome men who cherished and protected me.
My queen.
Meanwhile, Lita gained the strength of a beast woman and was paired with 3 defective males. Worse still, neither she nor her mates could transform into human form. Lydia was consumed with jealousy and spoke to me with bitter sarcasm. Ella, you're so lucky. They're even willing to remain in human form just to stay by your side. Even though you're so weak, they're completely devoted to you. Humans might be physically weak, but we possess something far more valuable: intelligence. Drawing on modern knowledge, I taught them better ways to make fire and hunt. Under my guidings, the Wild Plains tribe flourished. Before long, they couldn't do without me. But what Lydia didn't know was that beneath their devotion lay a possessiveness as savage as any beast. In this life, before the beast god had even finished speaking, Lydia rushed to claim the role of saintess. Without hesitation, she chose the same 3 beastmen from my previous life as her mates.
Are you certain of your choice? Once made, there is no turning back.
The beast god seemed surprised that she had chosen the physically win saintess without hesitation.
I choose this identity. I believe I can lead my tribe to prosperity.
The beast god sighed and transferred Lydia's soul into her new body. I ignored her provocation.
When my turn came,
The beast god tapped me lightly. A surge of power coursed through my body.
Ella, this body really suits you perfectly. Reflected in her eyes was the image of a fierce, savage beast woman. Ella, now you have all the strength you need. You can have those 3 useless males. This time, I'll have both the title of Saintess and the throne of the Beast Queen.
Seeing her innocent expression, I smiled. Lydia, I hope you remember, this is a world where the strong devour the weak. And now, I'm the one with the power. I knew exactly what she meant. In our previous life, the 3 beastmen by her side couldn't transform into human form. Worse still, they were all born with physical defects. When a neighboring tribe attacked, they died protecting Lydia, but I knew that kind of unwavering devotion was rarer than any treasure. Since fate had given me a second chance, I wouldn't let them meet the same tragic end. Feeling the power coursing through my body, I couldn't suppress a flicker of satisfaction. The titles of Beast Queen and Saintess were nothing more than gilded cages for the weak. If Lydia wanted them so badly, she could have them. Strength was everything in this world. After assigning our new identities, the Beast God sent us to the Beastkin continent. In our previous life, Leah dreamed of wielding great power while being adored by handsome men. But her inability to transform shattered those dreams completely. She despised the 3 males bonded to her and treated them terribly. Accustomed to life as a human, she could never adapt to the harsh customs of a Beastkin tribe. What she didn't know was that transformation required a beastman to accumulate enough strength. Instead, she spent her days lounging around the tribe. The 3 males bonded to her were already burdened by birth defects, and her constant mistreatment only made things worse. As a result, failing to catch prey, and going hungry because of it, became a regular occurrence. Lydia responded with nothing but scorn. By the time she finally gained enough strength to transform, years of malnutrition had taken a heavy toll on her appearance. Compared to my radiant beauty, she looked more like a beast than a woman. She deeply regretted her choice, but the Beastkin tribes had strict rules. A female could only choose new mates after one of her bonded males died, or after ascending to the highest rank among the Beastkin. So when another tribe attacked the Clearspring tribe where she lived, she used herself as bait and lured her 3 mates into an ambush. After their deaths, Lydia immediately began pursuing other males. She set her sights on the handsome snake men and the ape men, whose lifestyles were closest to those of humans. Eventually, when a new Beast King rose to power, all Beastkin were summoned to a grand ceremony deep within the jungle. There, Lydia saw me surrounded by 3 handsome men, who cherished me above all else and attended to my every need. At that ceremony, I was crowned Beast Queen, a position of unmatched honor and authority. Consumed by jealousy, she lured me to a poisonous swamp deep in the jungle and shoved me in. My tendons had already been severed, leaving me powerless to resist.
Ella Miller, you stole my place and lived the life that should have been mine for 20 years. Why do you always get everything that should belong to me? You're the one who took everything from me! Go to hell!
As those memories resurfaced, a cold, unreadable look flashed across my eyes. I was the adopted daughter they had raised in her place. When the Miller family finally found Lydia, they couldn't bring themselves to send me away after raising me for so many years, so they begged me to remain part of the family. Out of gratitude to the Millers for raising me, and out of guilt towards Lydia, I agreed to stay. It turned out to be the greatest mistake. There were countless ways to repay their kindness, yet I chose the most foolish one. In the years that followed, the Miller family's affection gradually shifted toward Lydia. They pressured me to give up my guaranteed university admission so she could take my place. They even let her decide what I would study. When Lydia fell in love with my fiancé, they broke off my engagement and gave it to her instead. Even my older brother, who had once doted on me, gradually came to pity Lydia for everything she had endured. He became convinced that I was the thief and lashed out at me every time Lydia framed me. She constantly reminded everyone that I had lived the life that should have been hers. But she wasn't entirely wrong. For 20 years, I had lived as the Miller family's daughter in her place. The Miller family had raised me, and I could never deny what I owed them. Now, those debts had finally been repaid. Even after being given a second chance, I still let Lydia choose first. From this moment on, neither of us owed the other anything.
You have now received your respective identities. You may now return to your respective territories.
The beast god's voice echoed across the land as Lydia and I descended into our new bodies. At this moment, we had just finished forming bonds with our mates. Lydia deliberately swayed her hips as she walked toward the 3 beastmen she had bonded with. The 3 males watched her with unmistakable possessiveness. The other males watched Lydia and her mates with obvious envy. None of them could rival the strength of those 3 males. They were Marcus Stone, the tribe's white tiger, Damian Hunter, the black lion, and Kieran Swift, the eagle, faced with such overwhelming power. The others could only admire the delicate female from afar. Standing behind me were a one-eyed wolf, a flightless eagle, and a seemingly harmless wild cat. As for me, I had become a white wolf beast woman. I flexed my sharp claws and bared my fangs in satisfaction. Among the wolf tribe, white wolves held the highest status. However, females like me were far from desirable in the eyes of most beastkin. That was why I had been paired with the 3 least desirable males in the tribe. But Lydia failed to understand one simple truth. Would never wish for you to remain weak. I glanced at the 3 beast men before me and calmly led them back towards our territory. The 3 beast men exchanged uneasy glances at my cold indifference. They couldn't transform, and even their beast forms were flawed. They trailed cautiously behind me, as though afraid of provoking my displeasure. After returning to the cave, I frowned. The cave was cold, damp, and dark. It was far from a place I wanted to call home.
Wait inside. I'll be back soon.
Perhaps some of my human habits still wrinkled. I instinctively disliked dark, damp places. I couldn't help smiling. This body's strength and speed far exceeded my expectations. I was certain I was no weaker than any of Lydia's 3 mates. When I entered the cave, I discovered that it had been cleaned up. The hard stone bed had been covered with soft, dry grass and animal hides. Someone had even placed small wildflowers on the stone table. The 3 beastmen watched me with emotions I couldn't quite read. I tossed the prey in front of them. At the sight of the food, they instinctively swallowed but made no move to touch it. "You can eat," I said.
I'll eat later.
At the sight of the food, they instinctively swallowed but didn't dare touch it without my permission. I wasn't used to eating raw meat, so I built a fire off to the side. Tearing off a piece of meat, I began roasting it over the flames. The 3 beastmen looked at me in surprise. In their former tribe, even when they were the ones who brought back the prey, they were never allowed to eat first. More often than not, they were left with scraps or meat that had already started to spoil. Fresh meat like this was a luxury they rarely experienced. When they still hadn't touched the food, I frowned in confusion and carried over the piece of meat I had roasted. "Do you want some?" The one-eyed wolf lowered his head.
No, you are our mate. This prey was hunted by you, so we can't eat before you do.
We won't be following those rules here. We'll be hunting together from now on anyway.
The 3 beastmen froze.
My name is Ella Miller.
I looked at them calmly. "If there's something you need, just tell me." The 3 beastmen stared at me in stunned silence. The 3 males looked at me, and a strange emotion flickered in their eyes.
My name is Soren Cross. The one-eyed wolf said, "These 2 are Adrian Vale and Caspian White. Neither of them can speak yet. So if you need anything, Ella, just tell me."
I wasn't sure whether it was because of the hunt, or because I still hadn't fully adapted to this body. All I knew was that exhaustion weighed heavily on me. "I'm going to get some rest. If you're hungry, eat, and if you can, keep an eye on the fire." After saying that, I settled into a corner of the cave and quickly drifted into a deep sleep. What I didn't know was that once they were certain I was asleep, the warmth vanished from Adrian's and Caspian's eyes. They slowly extended their claws towards me.
Hearing my voice, Solon rushed in from outside. The moment he saw me, he froze.
Ella.
When they were only inches away, Soren stepped in front of them, shielding me.
Soren, what are you doing? Have you forgotten how she abandoned us in our previous life? Now that she's back, all I want is to rip her apart.
Had I been awake, I would have realized that Adrian and Caspian were already capable of speaking. A dark glint flashed through Soren's lone eye.
She's not her.
When I woke up, it was already evening. I stretched and glanced at my hand. To my surprise, my sharp claws had completely disappeared, replaced by a slender, human arm. I couldn't help crying out. Hearing my voice, Solon rushed in from outside. The moment he saw me, he froze.
Ella, you've transformed?
Had I somehow become the Saintess again? The sight of me made his face burn. His voice was noticeably hoarse. Heat rushed to my cheeks. With a thought, I transformed back into my white wolf form.
Ella, congratulations. You can take human form now.
A look of shock flashed across Soren's face.
The woman standing before him looked exactly like the Saintess from their previous life.
As expected, nature had compensated them in other ways. Although Soren was blind in one eye,
In his eyes, I was far more beautiful than Lydia, the Saintess of this life. What surprised Solon even more was that, unlike Lydia, I rarely took human form. It was almost as if that transformation had never happened. In the days that followed, I taught the wolf tribe better hunting techniques and showed them how to build wooden houses. I also put the younger wolves through military-style training. Soren and the others were no exception. Adrian and Caspian gradually realized that I was nothing like the woman they remembered from their previous life. One day, Adrian and Caspian suddenly claimed that they had recovered their ability to speak. The reason they couldn't transform or speak before was simply that they lacked sufficient strength. As long as they accumulated enough power and received proper training, transformation wouldn't be difficult. During this time, I took them hunting and taught them combat techniques. Become far stronger than before. Any beastman who could survive despite such defects was far from ordinary.
as expected, nature had compensated them in other ways. Although Soren was blind in one eye, his hearing was extraordinarily sharp. Although Adrian couldn't fly for the time being, his claws were frighteningly powerful. And Caspian wasn't a cat at all, but a lynx. In close combat, he was even more dangerous than a wolf. Aside from the white wolves, most of the tribe's warriors were fairly ordinary. A faint smile touched my lips as I looked at them. It was better to teach them how to survive than to protect them forever. This time, I wouldn't let them meet the same tragic fate. My gaze drifted across the territory we had built, and my expression gradually grew serious. I remembered that this year's winter would be exceptionally harsh. The wolf tribe couldn't compare to the stronger tribes. Aside from the white wolves, most of the tribe's warriors were fairly ordinary. To make matters worse, much of the tribe consisted of the elderly and the young. But winter wasn't our greatest threat. After the cold season ended, a war that would engulf every tribe on the continent would erupt. Around that same time, news began reaching us from the tribe where Lydia lived. She had started introducing human knowledge to the beastmen. She used fire to cook food, refined mineral salts to improve the taste of meals, crafted tools, and even encouraged the beastmen to wear proper clothing. The 3 beastmen spoiled her shamelessly. Since her methods genuinely improved life within the tribe, the others eagerly accepted her ideas as well. In their eyes, she truly was a saintess sent by the gods. I knew she was following the exact path I had walked in my previous life. But unlike me, Lydia had no idea what dangers waited at the end of that road. Unfortunately, there was one thing I had completely overlooked. I couldn't help but scoff. Unrefined mineral salt contained all kinds of impurities, and consuming too much of it could place a heavy burden on the body, and excessive dependence on tools would gradually dull the instincts and physical abilities that beastmen relied on for survival. That was why I never forced Soren and the others to adopt my habits. Unfortunately, there was one thing I had completely overlooked.
I had taken every other beastman's instincts into account except my own. White wolves entered an extended mating season every year.
By the time I realized something was wrong, it was already too late. I could no longer maintain my beast form and was forced back into my human shape. I immediately shut myself inside the cave. Outside, Soren and the others paced anxiously near the entrance.
Ella, are you all right?
Just as my consciousness began to blur. Over the past few days, they'd realized I wasn't the Lydia they remembered from their previous life. They had gradually begun to trust me. Still, I kept them outside and immersed myself in ice water. However, I'd overestimated myself. Even after the icy water had warmed from my body heat, there was no sign of improvement. My temperature kept rising, and every inch of me felt unbearably hot. Just as my consciousness began to blur, I found myself falling into a cool, muscular embrace. When I looked up, a strikingly handsome face came into view. One of his eyes was covered, but rather than diminishing his appearance, it only made him look more rugged and dangerously attractive. Behind him stood two other equally handsome men.
At that moment, both of them were looking at me with concern.
Ella, let us help you.
Soren's hoarse voice seemed strangely comforting as he pulled me into his embrace.
The moment our bodies touched, he felt like cool water to someone dying of thirst. My throat burned terribly. Like someone dying of thirst, I instinctively wanted more.
Only then did Adrian and Casbin truly believe that I wasn't the Lydia they had known in their previous life. The three beastmen who had been kicked out of the cave exchanged confused glances. Soren, Adrian, and Casbian were completely baffled. When they transformed, they had unconsciously taken on the features most admired by beasting females. In their previous life, Lydia had always been fascinated by handsome beastmen like them. Yet the first thing I did after they transformed was throw them out of the cave. Only then did Adrian and Casbin truly believe that I wasn't the Lydia they had known in their previous life. When I emerged from the cave the next morning, traces of exhaustion still lingered on my face. Seeing the three of them waiting outside the cave, I hesitated. You three? They looked at me with a mixture of resentment and admiration. The three beastmen couldn't help feeling impressed. As expected of the former saintess, even that hadn't overwhelmed her.
Ella, please eat something and regain your strength.
Soren quietly placed a bowl of meat soup in front of me.
Rest for the next few days. Leave the hunting to us.
I nodded without refusing. Between the heat and the hours spent soaking in cold water, I was utterly exhausted. Lying on the stone bed, I found myself thinking about the tribal war that would erupt after the harsh winter. In my previous life, Soren and the others had died protecting Lydia during that war. It was also during that conflict that I ordered Marcus, Damien, and Keelan to rescue the beastmen of the Clearspring tribe and bring them into our territory. Those rescued beastmen became fiercely loyal to the men who had saved them. In my previous life, the Wild Plains tribe grew at an astonishing rate, and its beastmen became increasingly devoted to their leaders. A cold thought crossed my mind. Marcus, Damien, and Keelan would have a much harder time winning over the Clearspring tribe this time. After all, Why would the beastmen of the Clearspring tribe choose to follow outsiders when they were already living comfortably in their own territory?
Before long, the king of all beastkin would step down from his throne. Lydia was probably beginning to realize that being a saintess wasn't as wonderful as she'd imagined. The beast god had given her the ability to bear children, but not the strong physique to endure it. For Lydia, it was nothing but suffering. To the beastmen, producing offspring was one of life's highest priorities. I wondered how much longer Lydia could endure it. Before long, the king of all beastkin would step down from his throne.
Whether they wanted the throne or not, conflict between the tribes was inevitable.
In my previous life, I had used the title of Beast King as bait to keep Marcus, Damien, and Kyrian focused on competing for power. I wondered what Lydia would do this time.
Sure enough, when I saw her again, she was visibly pregnant. The way she moved made it obvious that pregnancy hadn't been easy on her.
Yet the moment she saw me, she lifted her chin proudly. Soren's gaze turned cold.
Stay away from Ella.
Ella, the smartest women know how to make powerful men fight for them. In this life, the position of Beast Queen will definitely be mine. Everything you worked so hard to build will eventually belong to me.
Then her gaze landed on the 3 beastmen behind me, and the smile on her face froze.
Who are you 3? Ella, you actually betrayed your mates!
Soren and the others stepped in front of me, their gazes turning icy as they looked at Lydia. Even though Lydia had changed her appearance, they recognized her immediately. That arrogant attitude was identical to the woman who had led them to their deaths in their previous life.
Soren's gaze turned cold.
Stay away from Ella.
You're Ella's mates?
A greedy gleam appeared in Lydia's eyes as she looked at the 3 of them. Solon was every bit as handsome as Marcus and the others. She couldn't help biting her lip. Her eyes filled with resentment as she looked at me. She couldn't understand why these males still cared so much about me, even though I had become what she considered an ugly beast. Just moments earlier, she'd watched Soren and the others carefully serving me peeled grapes and sliced meat. A flirtatious smile appeared on her face as she swayed her hips.
Have you ever considered choosing a different female?
Compared to our previous life, they were far more powerful than they had been before. Before Lydia could get anywhere near Soren, he and the others shifted into their beast forms and forced her back. Compared to our previous life, they were far more powerful than they had been before. A hint of satisfaction crossed my face as I looked at them. Back then, Lydia had changed my university major to animal harstadry just to humiliate me.
Ella, I'm only thinking about your future. If Mom and Dad stop liking you someday and you're forced to return to the mountains, at least this major will be useful, won't it?
Her words had dripped with malice. She wanted nothing more than to grind me into the dirt. Out of guilt, I yielded to her again and again. But all that had done was encourage her cruelty, until it eventually cost me my life. Now, I owed her nothing.
Besides, I had helped train and strengthen every beastman in the tribe.
Ironically, that major had turned out to be surprisingly useful. Even working together, the 3 of them wouldn't be able to defeat any one of Solon's companions. However, things weren't going well for the Wild Plains tribe where Lydia lived. Most of the cubs born recently either died shortly after birth or suffered from severe deformities. A cold smile tugged at my lips. Of course, After consuming so many impurities from the unrefined salt, it would have been a miracle if those cubs had been born healthy. After spending so long relying on tools and Lydia's version of civilization, Marcus, Damien, and Kyrian had become noticeably weaker. Even working together, the three of them wouldn't be able to defeat any one of Solon's companions. They stood even less of a chance against me, especially with the beast god's blessing. Lydia curled her lips into a mocking smile.
Ella, they're only staying by your side for now. Once one of them becomes the next king of all beastkin, he'll abandon you. The next king of all beastkin can choose any females he desires. By then, someone who looks like you will be cast aside without a second thought.
With a smile, I walked over to the priest and pressed my claw print against the registration board.
Who told you they're the ones competing for the Clear Spring tribe? Once winter ends and spring arrives, I hope you won't regret your choice.
Lydia shot me a resentful look. But the moment she saw Marcus and the others approaching, her confidence returned.
Ella, the Wild Plains tribe is flourishing now, moving steadily towards true civilization. Once winter ends and spring arrives, I hope you won't regret your choice.
I watched her leave, finding her words almost amusing. Lydia actually believed she could build civilization here? How ridiculous. Even after 2 lifetimes, she still hadn't understood the rules of survival in this world. Civilization or not, strength was the only truth that mattered. A faint smile appeared on my beast. Since they were so determined to establish civilization. After returning to the tribe, the harsh winter soon arrived. Throughout autumn, I led the wolf tribe in gathering enough food for the winter. By late autumn, we had already dug several storage cellars. Food that spoiled easily was preserved as cured meat or pickled vegetables. The salt we used was purified sea salt. A large island lay only a day's journey from the continent. In my previous life as a saintess, I could never have reached such a distant place. But in this life, blessed with the beast god's power, I could cover nearly 1,000 miles in a single day. The tribe also raised large numbers of animals, enough to feed everyone through the winter. The snowy season was our natural domain. Thinking about Lydia's so-called civilization, a faint smile appeared on my face. Since they were so determined to establish civilization, I would grant their wish. I would show them what civilization truly meant on this continent. Before winter had even ended, I led the Clear Spring tribe in conquering and absorbing several smaller neighboring tribes. No one expected a tribe to launch wars during a season when resources were scarce. Yet the Clear Spring tribe seemed to possess endless supplies. By the time spring arrived, we controlled nearly half of the Beastkin continent, and as the architect of that rise, I became the tribe's unquestioned chieftain. The moment she saw me, hatred filled her eyes. The next time I saw Lydia was on the battlefield, where contenders had gathered to compete for the title of King of all Beastkin. The moment she saw me, hatred filled her eyes.
Ella! You were reborn too, weren't you? You knew exactly what kind of monsters those three were. I gave you the chance to choose first. Why did you push me into this nightmare?
I glanced at her stomach. The skin around her abdomen hung loosely, marked by countless stretch lines. The healthy glow she once possessed had long since faded. She looked as though she'd weathered a terrible storm. Even the beast god's blessing hadn't been enough to spare her from the toll it had taken on her body. The beastmen of the Wild Plains tribe had consumed large quantities of contaminated salt.
Under those conditions, miscarriages were almost inevitable.
Only Lydia, strengthened by the beast god's power, had been able to carry cubs to term. Most of the Wild Plains tribe had become frail, sickly, or physically weakened, and Lydia was responsible for every bit of it. Many of those beastmen were far larger and stronger than ordinary males, and Lydia's body couldn't withstand the strain. That winter, their tribe faced a severe food shortage.
After discussing their options, the three males ultimately chose to exchange Lydia's ability to bear healthy cubs for food and resources.
To them, she had become little more than a valuable asset. They arranged for her to bear healthy cubs for other beastmen in exchange for supplies from neighboring tribes. Many of those beastmen were far larger and stronger than ordinary males, and Lydia's body couldn't withstand the strain. She was reduced to little more than a breeding tool, forced to bear cub after cub. The saintly image she once cherished was long gone. She was covered in grime, and an unpleasant odor seemed to cling to her wherever she went. I met her gaze and replied calmly, "Lydia, weren't you the one who chose first?" Whether she became a saintess or a beast woman, those decisions had always been Lydia's own. She looked as though she wanted to say something, but before she could speak, they looked at me with a mixture of caution and resignation. Something calculating flickered across Lydia's face. She leaned in and whispered something to the three beastmen. However, Sordin heard every word.
How shameless. They're planning to coat their claws with poison from an arrow poison tree.
My gaze turned cold. Fortunately, this was a primary psylline. The forest was rich in medicinal plants. Nature always maintained a balance. Where there was poison, there was often a cure nearby. Fortunately, my studies in animal hostry had also included courses in agriculture and medicinal plants. I knew exactly what the antidote looked like. I immediately sent Adrian and Caspian to search for it. By the time the poisoned beastmen were convulsing, gasping for breath, and on the brink of death, Adrian had already found the antidote. It was a crimson-colored root. The rescued beastman looked at me with absolute reverence. Meanwhile, Lydia and the others were condemned across the entire beastkin colony for resorting to poison. Her dream of becoming Beast Queen had been shattered. Under the scorn of every tribe, Lydia and her three males fled in disgrace. But I knew Lydia wasn't the type to give up. She was like a venomous snake, lurking in the shadows and waiting for an opportunity to strike. To lure the snake from its hiding place, I transformed into my human form. Previously, they had only seen me briefly. Sure enough, near the poison swamp, where I had died in my previous life, Lydia suddenly lunged from the shadows.
How foolish of her to think the same trick would work twice. I sidestepped effortlessly. Lydia lost her footing and fell straight into the poison swamp.
After everything that had happened between us, I no longer owed her anything.
Ella, why do you always end up better off than me? You're the one who took everything from me! You're the one who should die!
Lydia, I don't owe you anything. I wasn't the one who caused us to be switched at birth. That was the Miller's mistake, not mine. I was only a child taken in by the Millers. How could I possibly have stolen your place? Everything you wanted, I handed over willingly. In both lives, every path you walked was one you chose yourself. If anyone owes a debt, Lydia, it's you. Fury blazed in Lydia's eyes after hearing my words, but the poison swamp had already destroyed her ability to speak. Come out. Using Lydia as bait was a coward's move. As soon as the words left my mouth, Marcus and the others stepped out from the shadows of the jungle. The moment they saw me, something intense flickered in their eyes. However, they quickly concealed their emotions. The 3 beastmen approached and dropped to one knee before me.
Your Majesty, Queen of all Beastin, we have only one wish. The Beast God guided us to find our Saintess.
And you are identical to the Saintess we saw in those visions.
We wish to become your mates.
Realizing that a gentle approach wouldn't work, Damien and Kieran revealed their true strength. Adrian and Kieran were no longer the clumsy bird or the kitten they once were. Even with only one wing, Adrian could still soar. Kieran's feathers were torn away mid-battle, and he crashed to the ground lifeless. Damien clutched his bleeding wound, gasping for breath. The arrows were coated with deadly poison, a tool he and Lydia had created. But against their unmatched speed and power, the arrows were useless. In an instant, Soren sank his fangs into the man's neck, ending his life. I looked at the 3 males with satisfaction, unable to hide my sense of pride at how far they had come. With Marcus and the others gone, the Wild Plains tribe was quickly absorbed into ours. Lydia had led them poorly from the very beginning. Any tribe that abandoned its nature was destined to decline. The Clear Screen tribe continued to expand, eventually spreading across the entire continent. Soren and the others grew into powerful leaders, guiding our tribe from one victory to the next. After the entire Beastkin continent had been unified, the 3 of them proclaimed me queen of all Beastkin, before every tribe. They knelt before me in absolute loyalty, ready to give their lives for me. Transforming into my human form, I walked toward the highest throne. From that day forward, I became the undisputed queen of all beastmen.